Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a new study finds that Arizona has had more turnover of election workers than any other western state. Also tonight, ahead of Valentine's Day, we'll look at how best to identify romance scams, which are on the rise. And the executive producers of Nova talk about upcoming episodes and the importance of science journalism. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A new study finds that Arizona's turnover rate for election workers and top election officials is higher than any other western state. The report finds that threats, harassment, and pressure to break election laws drove the turnover, which was reported in all of Arizona's 15 counties. Joining us now is Jared McDonald-Evoy from the Arizona Mirror. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. A great job on this story. This is from 2020 on, correct?
Correct. Thank you for having me on, first of all. And you are correct. It's from 2020 on. The report by Issue 1 looked at 2020 until this last year, 2025.
You mentioned the report by Issue 1. Who are they?
So Issue 1, they're a non-partisan, nonprofit organization that kind of looks at the issue of voting, and they focus on the advocacy space of how can we reform voting, election administration in order to maybe bring more people into the space or just bring more reforms into elections.
And so the report says Arizona more turnover than any western state, and that there was turnover in every single county, and significant turnover, huh?
Correct. They examined 11 states in the West, and of the 11 states, Arizona was the only state that had more than the average, which was 50%, ended up being every single, or more than 50% of the counties, ended up being 100% of the counties. Every single county had at least one or more top election administrator who either resigned, was fired, or was replaced within that 5-year time frame.
And again, we're not just talking election workers here. We're talking about top officials.
Correct. This is either the county recorder position or the election director. These are people that do the real big lift on election days and preceding days of trying to figure out what that administrative work is, kind of figuring out where people go and figuring that stuff out.
Okay, so the reason that we're seeing this turnover here, what's the report finding?
So the report found that the main big reason in this 5-year period was had a lot to do with the spread of election conspiracies. We have had a lot of high temperature created in our politics since 2020 after the loss of President Donald Trump in that election. We had a lot of narratives around fraud being spread, and that led to a lot of threats towards election officials. In the wake of that, we had, the Biden administration created, the Department of Justice created a task force to look into threats against election officials. A lot of those threats ended up being investigated in this state in particular. There were several key election officials that had credible threats against them that led to indictments against people in other states who made death threats against people like Katie Hobbs when she was Secretary of State, or other election workers in this state.
So we've got threats, we've got intimidation and pressure, from the report here, pressure to break election laws. Explain.
Correct. That was another key part of the report. One of the counties that they focused on was Cochise County, which has been at the forefront of a lot of these kind of conspiratorial beliefs. Cochise County in the past year has seen 6 different people fulfill the role of county recorder because there's been pressure from their board of supervisors for their recorder to do things that the recorder is either felt uncomfortable with or are illegal. That was since County Recorder Lisa Mara resigned, it's kind of been this revolving door of people ever since.
And physically and emotionally threatening, Cochise County Election Director said.
Correct. Said that it was an environment that was not conducive to doing the job because they were being, coerced into adopting policies or adopting ideas like, hand counting of ballots in a way that wouldn't fit within the state statute.
So these people are leaving. Okay, there's turnover, but there aren't or are there vacancies?
In some areas there are vacancies, but right now it's more of just an issue of turnover. One of the big vacancies right now is in Navajo County, but that is due to that recorder having the resigning over an issue regarding a driving charge.
Yeah, not non-election issue factor there. But with the turnover, with the new people coming in, it sounds as though you've got a lot of people who don't have a heck of a lot of experience. You've got a brain drain with all these other folks leaving, correct?
Correct, and this was something that the issue one actually looked at in 2023 as well, where they found that I believe it was something like 90% of the state was going to have new election officials, not just in those top roles that were going to be fulfilling and working on elections. And it was, I think, a cumulative 176 hours of brain drain that we were seeing leaving the state. And that puts a lot of pressure on not just those top election officials, but the down the line poll workers and everyone else.
You mentioned Cochise County. Some of the rural areas, were they seeing more in the way of turnover, and are they seeing less in the way of getting qualified people back in there?
Well, to be quite honest, it's not as easy to get eyes on that. We don't have as many people reporting on some of those areas, and we don't have as much information in some of those areas as we do in, say, places where there are a lot of eyeballs like Maricopa County, Pima County, that have a lot more attention paid to them. But from what we know from stories out of like Cochise County, there is a lot of issue with retaining talent. And Yavapai County has also, a smaller county than, say, Maricopa, is experiencing similar issues as well.
I found it fascinating, though, the idea that there was so much pressure from elected officials on these folks to do things that it's not lawful. I mean, you're not supposed to do, and they're getting pressure from elected officials.
Yeah, that is something that we've been seeing since 2020. I think that Arizona's been on the forefront of that, and it will probably continue to be on the forefront of that going forward into these midterms and probably into the next presidential cycle.
I was going to ask you about the midterms. What does it look like out there? Are these counties ready to go? Because the counties, that's the first line of defense here. That's where it happens. Are they ready?
I think from discussing this with sources and with former election officials, I think that the people that administer these elections, the people who truly work on these things, they're doing the work and they are ready to administer the elections, be that under immense stress and pressure, whatever that may be. I think that they will fulfill and do these duties, but I think that the pressure from the outside is what's going to end up going to cause issues from whether that be an investigation that comes from a federal aspect or political pressure that comes in from somewhere else that causes some other trigger that we may not know of. I think those are the things that are going to be more of interest going into the midterms.
Yeah, and they're coming, and they're coming fast and furious. Jared McDonald-Evoy, Arizona Mirror, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Next time on Death in Paradise.
Major stab wound in the chest.
A chef is killed in his restaurant. His family and staff hated him, but they all have an alibi.
How do we make sense of all this?
Find out on Death in Paradise.
Saturday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
I like to think that at Arizona Horizon we are unique in the way that we present information, public policy, sometimes news, these sorts of things, because we have conversations. And I don't want conversations, that human interaction, to go out of style. And I hope with Arizona Horizon, it never goes out of style.
Arizona Horizon needs your support. Donate now and double the impact of your gift, thanks to the James and Barbara Ratcliffe Charitable Fund Challenge. Thank you.
Hiking isn't just about reaching the summit. It's about experiencing beauty that can only be found where the earth meets the sky.
I have done a lot of hiking in Arizona.
This trail is going to get intense.
I might be a little out of breath. And this is just the beginning.
Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. on Arizona PBS.
Valentine's Day is this weekend, and officials warn that romance scams are on the rise, with scammers looking to manipulate online daters into sending money or personal information. To learn more, we welcome Joe Ducey. He is with the Better Business Bureau. Joe, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is high season for romance scams, isn't it?
Yeah, actually there's an uptick. I think we looked at one of our service areas, city, San Diego. We found from February to April, 2 months, during Valentine's Day, $185,000 taken, just from the complaints that we received at the Better Business Bureau.
Wow.
So it kind of is a big deal during Valentine's Day, but it's a problem all year. And it takes more money, this scam, per person than any other scam that we follow.
Oh, wow. Okay. It sounds like targets, and from what I read, targets include recently widowed and divorced seniors, which is heartbreaking to hear.
It is. This is one of the toughest things to read, these complaints. We get a lot of scam tracker complaints, and it's just really tough to go through and see the amounts of money and see how emotional it is and how involved these people get with the scammers and how they really think that something's happening here. But yeah, they're approached on social media. They could be approached by a wrong text that comes in and they answer it. It could be on a dating app. And these people are approached out of the blue. And then conversations quickly go to romance and to other things.
Give me an example here. Let's say it's a text and someone receives a text and they just say, hey, I'm curious about this. And all of a sudden the conversation starts. How does it go?
Let me read you one thing here, a little part here from a person who wrote, I received a text from a person who accidentally texted me. Accidentally, that's not true. She started talking and I stupidly continued. She asked me to move the conversation to WhatsApp, which is a less secure platform for texting. She became a friend, shared her life, portrayed a lavish lifestyle, and later I said I could achieve all of that. She encouraged me to invest. I deposited $1,000 into Bitcoin. A lot of other stuff happened. He lost $100,000.
Holy smoke. Okay.
Yeah. So that kind of thing happens. They lead you off of the platform.
Yeah.
They become more emotional, so it's too fast, and then they start talking about money, yours, and how they're going to get it.
I'm seeing all sorts of red flags with that
Yes.
one. I mean, Bitcoin, again, the speed, the relationship aspect, just the concept of money. I mean, usually you go on a date or two, money's not necessarily unless who is paying for the meal. But I mean, other than that, I mean, so many red flags.
There are so many flags. And this one, it's the texting is a problem. In most of these cases, the people are out of the country, they say, so you never see them. They don't ever video chat. All of this is done by text. So these people feel like they have a relationship based on text. The other thing that's really interesting, and I've been doing this for a while, so the old school way, and it's still there, is somebody lives out of the country, they're deployed in Syria, and they need to get back, and they really want to be there, honey, with you, and but I need some money in order to do this or that, so they get paid. What's happening now, though, is I want to share my investment that I've made. I'm rich because of it with you.
Yeah.
Crypto, Bitcoin. They control everything. You start putting money in, they can actually show you made a little money.
Who are these scammers? Do we know who these people are? Where they're from? What do we know it all?
We know well, in most cases, they're not in this country. They're gone. They're somewhere else. And so you think you're talking to this, woman in whatever. It's some guy in a boiler room, in some other place. So if they can actually show who these people are, a lot of people probably wouldn't fall for this.
But that's a biggie, isn't it? They don't want to. You ask for a picture, you ask for a video, or you ask for more than one of these things. That kind of a little shy about that, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Yeah, they're never going to do that. It's all done by text, which is the interesting thing to me that you're going to. But here's what happens. You were right in the beginning. I think that people are targeted who might be seen as maybe they lost a partner.
Yes.
They're on social media and they've said that. They're lonely. They may not have anybody else in the house who they can talk to. I always say, because there are a lot of people who write us who are family members who say, I can't get my mom or dad to stop this. They really believe that this is the case because they've become so intimate in this. So I say, if you're involved with that kind of thing right now and you think it's real, step back a second. If any of this makes sense or if you've heard any of this stuff, talk to a family member, talk to a friend, and just kind of run it by them.
Okay, when you talk to the family member and you talk to the friend, and for these folks as well, what are the tips? What do you tell them? What are the guidelines to keep this kind of thing from happening?
I would say, just close the bank account. Don't have the access. No, I think the tips are, well, first of all, it's a scam if it's contacted out of the blue. If they're out of the country, can't meet and won't video chat, too familiar, too fast, and quick talk about money. Those are the scams. I would say, if you're involved in it, that just to have the person think about it, talk to them about how this actually happened, and maybe there's going to be some realization that, you know what, I never was able to see this person.
Yeah.
I wasn't able, they did talk about money pretty quick.
They never wanted to meet.
They never wanted to meet. They didn't follow up with it. He said he loved me pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't think about those things.
And also a biggie, I would imagine, would be if your bank contacts you and says, hey, something's funny going on here with X, Y, and Z, Mr. Wonderful X, Y, and Z, got to watch out for it.
I would really encourage, you're right, and I'd really encourage the banks to get more involved in those things. Anytime we've tried to get banks involved, because a lot of this is done through cash apps and through wiring money, anytime we've got to get them involved, they say, yeah, but the person agreed for this to happen. The customer agreed for it to happen. So we can't do anything about it. they agreed because they were scammed.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the hard part, getting these guys to get their money back. And it's, on average, it's probably $30,000, $40,000.
Wow.
It's huge.
Last question here, and kind of dovetails into what you were just saying,
Yeah.
and a little deeper than maybe romance scams in particular. But is this an indictment on society? Are we all somewhat to blame because there are so many lonely people out there?
Man, you always have the good, deep questions. I think you're right. And I've seen so many scams that I say to everybody, any offer, anything that comes up, I say, believe it's a scam, and then you try to prove that it's not.
Yes.
I hate to say that. You know, you want to trust people, the handshake, all those things. But I say, believe it's a scam, and then you show me that it's not, or I'm going to find out that it's not. I work back the other way.
Yeah, and
instead of saying it's a good thing, and then, yeah.
And if money's a part of the conversation at any point, you really got to watch out.
Anytime I want you to send money that way, it's just ridiculous.
Joe Ducey, great job. Better Business Bureau, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Thanks a lot, Ted.
The long-running PBS science show NOVA has produced award-winning science documentaries since 1974. This season's episodes include such tantalizing titles as Return to the Moon and Rain Bombs. Joining us now is NOVA co-executive producer Julia Court and co-executive producer Chris Schmidt. Good to have you both here.
Great to be here.
Yeah,
Thank
you're out of
you.
Boston. It's
Yes.
got to be a good thing just with weather alone.
Absolutely.
The temperature is nice.
For Julia, we'll start with you. For people who aren't totally familiar with NOVA, and I think our audience is, but for those who aren't, how would you describe the show?
It's all about science storytelling. And, you know, we do NOVA because science is such a crucial part of our lives, of society, of culture. We rely on it so much. And NOVA is all about helping people understand how science works, how it's done, who is doing it, and why, and really taking the audience on these amazing scientific detective stories.
Yes.
To figure out, how does the universe work? What is going on? Where did we come from? All the things that people are curious about.
Chris, I mean, is it difficult at times to make science, complex science, engaging?
I mean, I don't think so, because as Julia said, the shows that we make that are the most popular really are kind of like detective stories. And I'm a person who really believes that TV is an entertainment medium, right? I mean, most people don't turn on the TV to eat their vegetables. And our audience is really entertained by these stories of really human achievement and human ingenuity. So when you're following a story where you're presented with something that immediately triggers your curiosity, and the film promises to take you down a pathway and a journey that will show you what is behind that curiosity and how we learned it and how we've derived it. Those kinds of, those stories just tell themselves.
And you got to have a cliffhanger or two every once in a while.
You got to have a cliffhanger. No, we don't have commercial breaks.
I know, but if
we don't write into commercial breaks, unfortunately.
You have to have drama.
Yeah, you
have to have
the
drama.
ebb and flow of a drama, a
And
story
twists and
arc, in
turns.
other words.
Yeah,
absolutely.
challenges.
Yes.
Obstacles.
Yes. Okay, so how do you figure out which story is good and which story is engaging and needs to be told, and another which is, eh?
Well, we're looking for that. We're looking for drama. Which are the stories, one, that people are curious about? We have to start a show, with a question or a mystery. Those are the best kinds of novas. Yeah. And it's got to be something that people can understand. There's a lot of science that is very complicated, and the problems that scientists are working on can be too complicated for us to tackle, or because we don't think we can engage enough people.
We sort of have a rule, like, if you have to spend the first 5 minutes of the film explaining to people why they should be curious, you've kind of lost them, right?
Yeah.
So you want to start off with something that is very easy to understand right off the bat. What's that great big hole in the ground in Siberia? What's causing that? Like, immediately you're curious and you want to know the answer.
Or we want to get to the moon. How do we do it?
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
What does that take?
We're going to get to the moon here in a second.
Yeah.
Or so.
Okay.
But how long does it take to produce one of these documentaries?
So most novas take, I would say, 9 months to a year.
Wow.
From the time they're greenlit and the producer starts. So typically the producer will work on research, reaching out to the scientists, following the story, figuring out what the story is and how to tell it, maybe for 2-3 months, then shoot for 2 months, and then edit for 3 or 4 months.
There's a lot of writing and editing that go into the shows. And, but we've done some in just a couple of weeks, too, when there's some kind of a current event. We did a film very quickly about COVID when it first broke out. That was extremely popular, when nobody knew what it was and everybody was curious. And but most films are like 9 months or so. Sometimes they take years, really.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the episodes coming up here. Return to the Moon. And I was going to ask, what if it takes 9 months to a year, what happens if the science changes? Boy, Return to the Moon, that sounds pretty fluid,
Yeah,
huh?
we started that one 50 years ago. That's a film where, in that case, we've made the film, most of the film, and we've reserved a certain amount of it for footage that we'll gather during the Artemis II mission. And we'll put it together really quickly and try to get it on the air as soon as possible after the splashdown. If they splash down on a Tuesday, we want to get the show out on Wednesday, for example.
Yeah, because that mission is going through some things.
Yes.
Right.
So it was, their first launch window was last week, and that got delayed. And so the next launch mission window is the beginning of March. And so we're talking to everybody to say, once it launches, we have 10 days, and then we're going to try to get it on the next Wednesday after it splashes down.
You got to be nimble and flexible on
That's
that,
it.
don't you?
Yeah.
Rain Bombs is another one.
So Rain Bombs, this is a really fascinating film. Some of it was shot in Arizona. Actually, there's a storm chaser here named Mike Olbinski who did some incredible photography of this. But basically, a rain bomb, it's an atmospheric phenomenon that is exacerbated by warming, climate change. Essentially, what's happening is as warm air hits moisture, the warmer the air, the more moisture it absorbs. And so you get these columns of water up into these great big clouds that then hit cold air, suddenly cool off, and you can have this phenomenon where all of the water just comes straight down in one burst, which then blasts outward. And these things have killed people. They've destroyed houses.
Do you remember the Bayesian yacht? That was
the super yacht
the super yacht in
Mediterranean?
in Italy with the billionaire and his family.
Oh my goodness.
That was a rain bomb.
Yeah.
We have them here. We call them microbursts.
Yeah, they are like microbursts, but they're getting worse, and you get these patterns of microbursts that turn into a derecha, which is a sort of a concentration of this phenomenon that just keeps happening over and over and over again in a cycle.
Julie, there's one title I'm a little confused with. Athens, Birth of Democracy.
Yes.
Where's the science here?
It's archaeology. It's archaeology, and we actually have some experimental archaeology in this. And some of our most popular novas are really archaeology shows trying to figure out how people lived in the past, how they built, what their societies were like, all from the stuff that comes out of the dirt. And there's some remarkable finds coming out of Athens, including some mass graves that they think were from civil unrest. It's an actually amazing story that I didn't know very well about how democracy came to be. And the experimental part is they had found these strange, fragments of marble with these weird, ticks and coals in them. And it turns out they're from lottery machines to draw lots. A lot of the democracy and the leadership, they didn't have elections. They would do random selections of citizens. And that's how almost everything was governed that way.
Wow.
That people were chosen, and they thought that was the way to keep it fair and make sure you could avoid corruption, because if you start electing people, then they can influence the vote.
It sounds like a great nova. Hey, I want to mention that you guys are here to accept the American Association for the Advancement of Science Journalism Award. So congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that.
Thank
and
you.
we're so happy to have you in the studio to talk about all this stuff coming up. Holy smoke, a lot. It sounds like a bad Shirley Jackson novel or something.
It was crazy.
There's no black spots.
Okay, all
There's
right.
also no gerrymandering back then, right? So it's
There
just
you
like
go.
straight
They were
democracy.
very concerned about fairness and no cheating.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll watch for that. Well, Julia Court, Chris Schmidt, again, congratulations on the award and all the success and continued success to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you
very
so much.
And that's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Hi, I'm Catherine Anaya, host of Horizonte. Have you signed up for the Arizona PBS Conexión e-newsletter? Visit azpbs.org/Conexión to subscribe to the monthly resource created to serve Arizona's vibrant Hispanic community. Conexión highlights Latino-focused Arizona PBS programming and features learning resources for kids, details on upcoming events, important headlines, and a brief column from yours truly.
Ah, the peaceful villages of Midsummer host to lovely parties, friendly neighbors, and
She's been murdered.
dead bodies.
There's a surprising quantity of dead people in there.
But Tom Barnaby is on the case.
Oh, I see.
And he has a new partner.
Your tie is crooked. Thank you, sir. And you don't get Sundays off when you work with me. Great.
The fiendishly clever series.
Stop! Please.
Midsummer Murders.
Tonight at 8 on Arizona PBS.